right, welcome everybody to Steering Committee Monthly Meeting number 11. This meeting has been moved back, originally intended for November, but with a number of things happening in the community, with a number of people in the steering committee, we've moved this meeting back to today. The next steering committee that is usually at the end of the month is going to be moved to the beginning of January, with the holidays right around the corner. Again, we want to give people time with their families. There'll be a number of things going on in the Akash ecosystem over the next couple of weeks. But again, the next steering committee has been moved from the end of the month, and it's going to be Thursday, January 11th, where it'll be a kickoff. There'll be a couple of SIGs and working groups that happened prior to that, but it'll really be a kickoff to 2024. And then we'll continue with the regular schedule of the steering committees being at the end of the month with January. So again, we have a steering committee meeting happening today, and then the next one won't be for another month or so, and then we'll have a follow-up at the end of January 2024, but a lot to look forward to. Out of the last steering committee, that we talked about a number of discussions that have since gone up for proposal. So thank you to all those that participated in those discussions and also those who voted. Also, since then, we were getting ready for mainnet 8, and as we've kind of talked about in depth in SIG chain that just happened this week. Since then, we've had successful upgrades to mainnet 8 and then mainnet 9. There's no more planned upgrades for the rest of this year. But again, as discussed previously in SIG chain, there's a lot happening in the first quarter of 2024. So a lot to look forward to there. Again, there's a number of other items that you all can track. Every steering committee is recorded, transcribed. There's notes that I take during these meetings. And again, then members of the steering committee look at those notes and we make changes to a number of areas and GitHub. I much appreciate, again, everybody that participates in discussions. But with that being said, I know that Anil is moving around a lot today. I'm happy to continue sharing, or Anil, let me know if you want to start the process.
Can you hear me okay? If you're hearing me okay, then I can try and share.
Yes, I can hear you well.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Go ahead and share, and if any issues at any point, I can always switch over to sharing.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, cool. So thanks for joining, everyone. So as we do typically, we'll go through 3 or 4 main agenda items here. We start with any discussion about feedback from the community. So if there's any things that people want to bring up in terms of,
Anil, it's a bit hard to hear you. You're going in and out for some reason. Is there any way to bring the microphone closer to your?
I'll just disconnect my microphone.
Anil, if you need, I can also help, and you can just speak when on focus parts, and I can just do the agenda. No problem.
Go for it.
Excellent. Cool. So as Anil just mentioned, as the agenda that you see on the screen right here, the first item that we do is we review, discuss, and address any community feedback, grievances, or conflicts. So does anyone have any comments, any issues with how things are being run in the open framework with special interest groups and working groups? One thing that, and I've mentioned this in Insiders as well, one thing that I'm looking to improve in 2024 is continuing to make the meetings more accessible for everybody. I also want to add some fluidity. There was a lot of structure in 2023 with how the meeting times, and I know that people are coming in from all over the world, so it's hard for some folks to make themselves available at the meetings at like 2 a.m. local time. What I want to do a better job of in 2024 is making sure that there's a number of key stakeholders at every meeting, and so being a little bit more fluid with the meeting times. So that's something that I'm going to be focused on. Robert, I saw your hand up. Is there anything that you want to talk about in terms of community feedback?
Yes, real quickly, Tyler. I just noticed that for next week, we don't have the silly working group call added. I don't know if that's something you can help me out.
Yes, I'll make sure that gets added to the calendar. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. It can be for Monday 11th, and I guess we can wrap it up for the year on the 18th, and that should be enough. Thank you so much, man, and also appreciate the work you do with the working group calls.
Yeah, no problem. I'll add those 2 calls. So for next Monday, the 11th, and the following Monday, the 18th. Does anyone else have any specific feedback about community groups? Again, the special interest groups, working groups, user groups, and beyond. Again, if you don't want to leave any feedback now, feel free to reach out to myself on Discord or anybody else that you feel comfortable talking to, and then we'll look to get those items addressed. Cool. As the next part of the agenda, previously we've used the projects list, which is, again, a static table that we've been using throughout 2023. I'm going to start sharing my screen, Anil, so I can just link people to that. So again, previously we've used this table when we're tracking all the items that are being worked on in public. Obviously, you see everything from hackathon to economics 2.0, GPU support, which some of these things are in various states of released. Go ahead, Anil.
Yeah, I was just going to say, hopefully you can hear me better now without the
Perfect.
Bluetooth. But yeah, I was going to say, right now our project list is essentially split into 2 sections. All the engineering and product work is being tracked in a project board. And then some of the non-engineering work, for example, events, hackathons, any marketing things, those are being tracked still in this list. So I think we can go through both of them, if it makes sense, really quickly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I actually, what I was going to say to that point is, at the last meeting, we talked about authorized spend, and that is going to be moved into released. But we are going to be sunsetting this project list in its current form as a table, and instead we're going to be using, as Anil just described, there is a link, and I'll put the link in the chat for folks. There are project boards. There's one for product and engineering, and there's another one for marketing and community efforts, where, again, specific projects are being tracked. So we started using this last steering committee, but we'll start using it today and moving forward. So again, we'll start with the product and engineering roadmap, and we'll just highlight some of the big things that are in the in progress column and up next. And then if anybody has any questions, they can ask those here, and then we'll move on to the marketing and community board, and we'll do the same. Cool. So at the highest level, again, out of one of the most recent upgrades, we're allowing for GPU models to be shown in bids. I know this is work that the CloudMost team is currently working on, and you can see some of the other efforts that are coming out of the CloudMost repo that Max and Max are currently focused on, and where they're focusing their time and energy. One of the other big things that's being tracked is the provider content moderation out of SIG providers. The Praetor team, led by Jagar and Debal, have been focused on, out of a working group that we've talked about in great detail, working group content moderation, have been working on management API and moderation API. They gave a demo at the last SIG providers meeting, and are continuing to work closely with the core team to implement some of these changes into the core code base, or excuse me, into the core code base. Yes. Again, all of these items can be tracked, and you can look inside and you can track conversations. We try to get folks to update these on a weekly basis. So even in between steering committee meetings, folks that have specific questions can ask those relative to a specific project or task. And then again, look to get feedback from somebody from the core team or somebody else from the community that might be working on some of these efforts. Go ahead, Anil.
Yeah, I just wanted to, at a high level, just say that on the core side, our main focus, at least through the end of this year, is on 3 main things. First is, implementing this product feature discovery service, which will let us look at various provider-related things, whether it's GPU models, other things, from the provider and make that available as a service. So that's kind of number one. This doesn't require a network upgrade. So that is the reason why we're not planning for any more network upgrades this year. And then the second is supporting AMD, and that doesn't require a network upgrade either. And supporting AMD is important because if you've been paying attention to the news, AMD just had their event this week where they announced their latest generation chipset, the MI300, and they've already had a MI210 and an MI250, which are all starting to be very competitive relative to NVIDIA. And so, if we can support an AMD on our network, which is a relatively small effort, then we become one of the clouds that starts to get AMD GPUs on the network, and that continues to drive demand. So those are kind of the main things. Following those two, the next thing that is a significantly large effort is for us to look at supporting secrets, which is important for us to be able to support private containers on the network. This is something that is constantly asked of us when we talk to customers as well as within the community. One of the challenges today is if you want to deploy on Akash, you have to make your container public and put it in a public container registry. So that's a significant limitation that we want to try to address. So that's kind of the next thing that's up next. But the primary things that are being worked on right now, at least from a core team perspective, are the provider service and the support for AMD. And then, of course, from the community, the Plato team is working on the content moderation effort.
Thank you, Anil. Again, I know there are a number of items that are being worked on by members of the community and also by members of the core team. Anil did a great job of just talking at a high level about a number of things. Does anyone have any specific questions on the product or engineering roadmap in terms of prioritization, in terms of task, or in terms of participation? Does anyone see anything here that they want to learn more about and get more involved with? Cool. I know Archer talked again in great detail about the upcoming network upgrades happening in hopefully the first quarter of 2024. He talked about that in detail during SIG chain as well as SIG support. So I don't want to have him repeat himself a number of times, but if anybody has any questions about network upgrades and planned network upgrades happening early in the new year, please feel free to look at those recordings. And again, if you have any follow-up questions, there will be support tickets made for each upgrade in the support repo where you can track specific items, where that upgrade is, how far we are from the upgrade time, where the testing process is, and beyond. Archer, don't feel obliged, but do you want to say anything specifically about network upgrades or anything else on the engineering roadmap before we move over to the community and marketing roadmap?
Just a little probably about planning. So in the past, especially this year, well, we've done quite a few network upgrades. Some of them were announced not like pretty shortly, a couple of weeks notice. What we're gonna try to do next year is we try to plan upgrades for the quarter. So the next Q1 is having 3 upgrades scheduled. So we're gonna try to lay them out approximately when they're gonna be happening. So it's gonna give a huge head of time for everyone, including validators and exchanges and pretty much everyone else. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Archer. Does anyone have any questions, comments about the product and engineering roadmap before we move on to the other board? Cool. Well, again, continuing on with our project list portion of the agenda, as previously mentioned, many of the items that community and marketing are driven are going to be in this board. So again, if anybody has any specific things that they want to add, I know that Adam was head of community, has done a great job of outlining all the specific items, whether they be events for 2024 or other hackathons or other specific initiatives, everything from governance proposals down to, again, the specific events. So if anybody has any questions, you can kind of see here. You can also track what's happening with Zealy, an effort that Robert and Benjamin are leading in his pilot stage right now. And you can see some of these other efforts. I also do want to shout out something that Huey, as well as other members of the core team, are working on is a bounty board. So again, well, when there's obviously the Overclock Labs team is very small. And so with the open framework, it's always been a goal to have as many community contributions as possible across a number of different items. And so making that more readily available so that folks can know how they can participate and can start to earn some AKT is something that is going to be a focal point of Q1 2024, but like even beyond that. I don't know if Huey, Chang, or anybody else wants to talk about this in more detail. I'm sure there'll be more discussions happening in the future around specific initiatives, but I just want to call out for folks to be able to look at, this master view that shows all the various projects, but then again, this bounties view that you can get some more specific information. I heard a hand up. Go ahead, Chang.
Yeah, thanks for walking through that, Tyler, and you're absolutely right. Just to kind of sneak peek a little bit, we're still fleshing out a couple of details, but especially as we go into the holiday season, I suppose we're at the first, we passed that first milestone already. We're kind of into the holiday season in terms of getting the community engaged. And, for example, Julia ZJ has been an instrumental part of building, STXL and Akash and others, and we'd love to invite more of that onto the network and contributing. So we'll definitely update the bounty board and others to really invite more of that, especially over the next couple of weeks and into the new year. So please definitely stay tuned on our Discord, on the boards and all that stuff, and on our Twitter as well. So we will definitely have something coming out soon for people to, I think, get excited about over the holiday season and into the new year.
Excellent. Thank you, Chang. Specifically, a couple of things that I want to highlight on this board. Website revamp, because I see Piyush on this call. I see some other folks on this call, Dennis included. This has been an active effort that's gone on since Piyush and his team have received community pool spend for the website revamp. They have been very attentive, been very responsive, and since they've received funds, we've been meeting in public on a weekly basis. I think we're about like 23 calls deep on meeting again weekly to discuss everything from the website revamp to specific UX and UI changes. Dennis, Piyush, is there anything specifically that you all want to highlight in terms of the work that's happening with the website revamp? And obviously, again, inside here, you can see a link to the staging site where it lives right now. And again, once it's made available and it's public, the site will be open source and will be available in the website repo inside the Akash organization. So I'll look out for that soon. But Piyush or Dennis, do you have anything that you wanted to talk about specifically?
Thanks, Ty. I think you pretty much covered everything. We're in the final stages, so we're just at the moment focusing on refining UI and adding proper links, content, and so on. And in the last couple of meetings, we were also covering another SIG, which is docs, and we just wanted to make sure that we have this good overall experience in the website. So docs are becoming part of it as well. So we all hope for to go live quite soon. So hopefully in the next 10 days. So thanks. Piyush, if you have anything to share, please do.
Yeah. So since we started working on the Akash website revamp, so as we all know, the Akash website revamp is being structured with carefully selected technology stack, and we are continuously working on it. And within a few weeks, it will be officially live on official domain, Akash.network. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, there's a number of meetings that are being added to the calendar for folks that want to participate in helping with content. I know that's something that Zach and other members of the community are looking to, again, optimize ahead of the launch. So if anybody wants to get involved in some of these last minute, just checking various pages, making sure that the content is there, making sure that all the links work, feel free to join those meetings and help be a part of the final stages of the debugging process. Cool. I know that, again, there was an events gov prop that went on discussions, was on discussions for a while, and then I believe recently went up for vote and has since passed in its like a text phase. Adam, is there anything specifically you want to be talking about in terms of events for 2024 and some of the things on the roadmap here?
Yeah, this would be quick. So yeah, shout out, the events GovProp is passed. So now I'm in the middle of working with 3 or 4 different upcoming events for potential sponsorship and figuring out what our presence will look like. But should have more updates on that before the end of the year. But we're on track to kind of get locked in for 3 upcoming events.
Excellent. Next on the list is hackathon. I know that, again, there's a working group session happening around the hackathon tomorrow, Friday. It's on the events calendar. Adam, is there anything specific you want to talk about with next steps in terms of the 2024 hackathons?
Yeah, for sure. So tomorrow we're looking to kind of finalize what our governance proposal will look like. Once that's ready, it'll go up to GitHub for discussions to get feedback. And then if there's not substantial feedback, we'll look to get it up for a governance proposal vote. So hopefully before the end of the year or early next year, we'll have some resources to start working on a few hackathons for 2024.
Excellent. So if anybody wants to get involved, feel free to leave a note inside the specific tile or join that working group session that's happening tomorrow. Cheng said it at the top of the call, but I do want to highlight the work that Zach and ZJ have been doing around SDXL on Akash. If you go to the link, and I'll just drop it in the chat for folks that may not know, there's been significant work of just showcasing, again, the power of the Akash Network and the GPUs. And so, again, I just want to shout out Zach and ZJ for the work that they've done there. I don't know if, I know it's a completed item, but I don't know if either of them want to say anything about that work or about any upcoming work that might be available to the community or that they've been thinking about.
Not offhand. SDXL is live. Mistral's coming soon. I'll keep you guys posted as soon as that's ready to push.
Excellent. So again, but if you haven't used it, please feel free to use it. Okay, I know there's a number of other efforts in the up next and in progress. Is there anything on this board that anybody wants to talk about that hasn't been talked about yet? Cool. If anybody wants to add anything to this board, again, you can add an item in a draft state, and then it can be, again, converted into an issue. So feel free to reach out to me if you need any help with that process. Cool. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Again, going back to the projects board, does anyone have any questions about anything product engineering or marketing and community related in terms of public facing projects in the projects list? All right. As
I'd
mentioned,
also like
again,
to say,
oh, go ahead.
sorry, Ty, I should have raised my hand there. I'd also like to say, if there are things that the community, anyone here is interested in working on that hasn't yet been scoped, and you want to start a discussion, or just hit us up on Discord or wherever, we're definitely open to ideas. So definitely, please, if you have a thought or a suggestion, you just want to ideate, let us know.
Go ahead, Rodri.
Hey guys, so I saw the bounty for the Blender SDL, but there had also been one already in the awesome repo. Just wondering if the bounty is still ongoing or not. I don't think it's been marked as complete, or if that SDL is going to be accepted or not.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, they put that out not knowing that there was already one, so it's been completed. It just hasn't been updated, so we're all good there.
All right.
Again, the projects board lives inside the Akash organization. If you go to projects, you can track in real time what's going on across engineering and product efforts, as well as community and marketing. If you look in the specific tiles on a weekly basis, whether it be folks from the community or members of the Overclock Lab core team, we try to update those specific projects. So again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop a question in a project or just look out for those updates that tend to happen on a weekly basis. And again, shout out to the Praetor team for all the work that they're doing, the Cloudmost team for all the work that they're doing, and obviously many other members of the ecosystem that are helping with core product things and a number of other initiatives. Cool. Well, next up on the agenda, we'll go through discussions. Again, usually we go through discussions that happened in between meetings. The last steering committee, I believe, was at the beginning of November, so I think it's been a little bit over a month since the last time we've talked. Usually we also try to have people that are presently here that want to talk about their discussions. Is anybody here so we can give the most time to anybody? I know, Benjamin, you are here, and I know that, Benjamin, you put in a pre-proposal that got some feedback, and now you've put in a proposal for miscellaneous contributions and creating a new auditor with open source tooling. Do you want to talk about this proposal for a minute or so, and then again, we can get some more feedback from people in the community and hear from the steering committee?
Yeah, please give me 1 minute so I can prepare everything.
Absolutely. While he's doing that, again, there have been a couple of other proposals or ideas that have gone in there. We won't talk about the ideas here unless anybody wants to talk about them specifically, but if you have any feedback, for whether it be members of the steering committee and core team or again, members of the community, feel free to drop in feedback related to some of these ideas here. I know that, again, there was a community support proposal that went up online as well. Adam, do you want to talk about this while we wait for Benjamin? Oh, Benjamin, are you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Can I share my screen?
Absolutely. All right. So again, we're going to be discussing very briefly the proposal 406 by Benjamin.
Awesome. Let me just share my screen. All right. Great. So me and my brother have been working on this little project where we started on the Akashathon hackathon, where we got the idea and started creating some basic demo and basically showing what the idea would allow. We started by creating this discussion. I believe this is 3 weeks ago. So, and this was not discussed last meeting either. Basically, I'm not going to explain everything here because we have made several demos here, but I just want to explain where all information is available. Basically, we started with this pre-draft discussion. We wanted to explain what we wanted to develop. We scrapped this, but we turned this into an integration instead. We explained how much resources it would take, and we discussed with the community if the funding we're asking for is fair or not. Then we got a great number of people responding with a lot of feedback, and we applied it and created a final proposal draft here, unless there is major feedback on something that needs to be changed. We also created some market research where right now there's only 11 responses. I know that there is a chance that this will go out in the Akash, what is it called? I don't really know, but the emails that are going out from Akash will include this form link. Right now, we have 11 responses, And basically for each question, 90.9% is currently voting in favor of the market research questions. So this does not include the details, but just whether or not this would be needed or not. And lastly, we have this draft proposal. We have created some concise information here with everything related to proposal. Please feel free to ask any questions.
Thank you. So again, just for those that may not have it in front of them, what Ben and his brother are looking to do with the community pool spend is basically create benchmark, allow for benchmarking providers, testing of RPC nodes, and tracking uptime. And again, they're going to be using the CloudMost open source infrastructure, the indexer, to be doing this. And then they also want to be implement a KYC into an auditor. So again, please look at the proposal and look at what they're looking to contribute. Does anybody from the steering committee, Greg, I see that you're off mute. Do you have anything, initial thoughts, questions?
What are the exact deliverables? Is it code and timelines?
Let me see. We have these four are general ones, but here we have a bit more explaining. And if you refer to the previous discussion, you will have more details on each service. We will have both code so that anyone will be able to spin up their own service, but we will also host it ourselves.
What is your model post-funding? How do you plan to sustain yourself?
I discussed this a little with someone from the community a little. So right now, we don't have any plans. We just have ideas on expansions. We're not going to go to the community pool again, but basically our idea is that regardless if it will be a big money maker for us or not, it does not matter for us. We will keep it running for as long as we can and for as long as it makes sense. Then we will dabble with ideas of, let me see, I have the ideas written down. Give me a few seconds. So yeah, some of the ideas that we might explore are, for example, golden tiers. We could have money back guarantees if the providers were not to have a good service. We could have fees on the KYCs. And then we also have some other ideas, but we probably don't want to try this out. These are pay-per-lease advertisements and such.
I think it's important for the network in general, Akash Network as a whole, in community, to incentivize auditors. So far, it's unincentivized, and people are doing out of their goodwill, like yourselves. But this leads to another important aspect that we need to have a broader discussion. I do like the idea of creating a more automated system and open sourcing it so anyone can run it. But I do like the idea of you running it, and what we need to work on is a more sustainable way to fund your operations. Not only your operations, but all auditor operations. But from a deliverable standpoint, I support this proposal. Someone had a question.
I saw a hand up. PS, did you have your hand up? And I saw that DC Norse put a question or put something in the chat. But PS, did you have your hand up?
If so, I have a questions regarding like how the tier-based a rating will be established? Like, is it an automated approach or like in some other way? Is it a manual approach for the providers? I saw like there was some discussions going on regarding like putting a tier-based ratings for the providers through this proposal.
Yeah, I think this depends a little on how deep you want to go, because if you were to create a provider and the cheapest lease you have is like $100, or maybe you're not accepting old leases, it could be hard to benchmark it. So in that sense, we might have to explore ways to get those providers to allow these benchmarks. But beyond this, we will collect all possible information without forcing providers to do something. So a lot of information is trackable without creating a single deployment. And for these so-called audits, the provider doesn't have to do anything. Does this explain a little, or?
Yeah. So, and besides uptime percentage and KYC, what are the deliverables of this proposal?
So besides KYC and what was the other thing?
Uptime, that is right now here on the CloudMos.
Yeah, so we plan on, for example, benchmark the providers via deployments. This includes most resources, so CPU, disk, etc., where you can deploy different benchmarking images. We also have ones for RPC nodes. We want to verify that they still work and provide up-to-date lists. Because one issue that we've been seeing a lot recently is this was especially visible when we had the network upgrades and it didn't go super well. Some of the RPC nodes, even though some worked, some just didn't work at all. They were online, but they didn't help you connect to the chain. So one thing is that we will also include RPC nodes. There are a lot of things mentioned both here in the latest discussion, and we refer to the previous one as well. And we have a lot of details here as well.
Okay, and final question. So let's say there are 10 providers in the ecosystem. Let's assume there are 10 providers, and you launched this auditor with your terms. Like, what things you'll be tracking the most, and what makes a provider a top tier, and what makes a provider a low tier, as per your rules that we'll be defining in this tool. So it would be great if you can add those wordings in this context, like adding a little bit explanation, like what makes a provider top tier, what makes a provider low tier, as per the rules that we will be defining in this tool. And besides KYC, uptime, CPU, and storage that is there on the CloudMos indexer, what deliverables that will be there through your proposal. So it would be great to see like what are the major goals of this proposal. You can consider adding the words. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Great, thanks for all the questions. Well, we want to leave a lot of this to the user itself. So we will try to create a filtering system. So both in CloudMos and via SDL, you'll be able to define these yourself. But for the general auditing, like we will have this in two different ways. The general auditing will be more so kind of how like multi-audits has been working, and the not Akash official auditor, but I'm not sure what it's called, the one that Andy is helping to run. Basically, for the general auditing, we don't really have any set anything set yet. We could definitely discuss what users think here. We want to create a set of criteria that are good enough, like written here, but we don't have anything set in stone yet. For the other system, the user could, for example, say that, oh yeah, my provider needs to be in Europe. My provider needs to have 95% uptime or more. My provider needs to be at least 1 year old, and it needs to have KYC. These tiers that we're going to include in our auditor will be possible to filter both via STL and via CloudMOS, regardless of how you want to mix them together, kind of like a puzzle. Does that answer your question?
Okay, I think it answered. So basically, you are trying to create a filtering system, right? So as you said, like the user will select like, I want my provider to be 1 year old. I want my provider to be 100% or 95% of time or something like that. Is that correct?
Yes. Here is also a quick demo I created of how it could look like. So you could choose, this is just based on CloudMOS API, but basically so many providers are filtered out just because you want it in a specific way. Go ahead, Tyler.
I think this is great conversation. I would just ask that if anybody has any other questions that they would like to have Ben and his brother ask, feel free to drop those in this discussion. I know that we got some great feedback from Greg and his support for, again, this proposal. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to drop it in there. Does anyone else from the steering committee have anything they want to mention? Piyush, go ahead real fast.
No, my all questions are clear. It was your mistake.
Okay, yeah. No. Again, I really appreciate the questions, Piyush. If anybody else has any questions, I see some comments also in the chat. If you can add those questions and comments to this proposal, it'll help Ben either add some of these items to the proposal wording, or again, think about next steps. Once Ben's ready to move forward, then again, this will go up for vote. And then if it passes, then very similarly to the working group for the Akash website, we'll make sure to either track this via SIG providers or create a special working group where we can get updates from Ben and team. Folks from the community can help in the decision-making process for some of these like finer tuned details. But yeah, those are next steps as I see them. I know there's a couple other discussions. I know we only have 14 minutes left. Does anyone else have anything that they must talk about right now that can't go into the discussions post? Cool. Well, Ben, much appreciate you taking the time to walk us through that. I'm going to start sharing my screen again, and then we'll continue moving down some of the discussion boards because I know we have a couple of other items that we want to get to. All right. While Ben was getting ready, I know we were talking at the highest level about a proposal that Adam Wozni put on for the Akash community support proposal. It is something that passed last year, you know, as again a funding mechanism for folks in the Insiders Vanguards program. Adam, is there anything specifically that you want to talk about this proposal before we open it up to questions from the steering committee and other members of the community?
No, this is basically kind of framework from last year's community support proposal. Basically, this is for funding for the Vanguards program and for community bounties. So yeah, it's similar to last year, just kind of been updated through feedback and how last year's went. I think today or tomorrow is the last day for kind of GitHub discussion. So any additional feedback or thoughts, put it in there, and then we'll work on updating it if need be. Looks like it should be good to go though. So hopefully within the next week or two, we'll put it up for a governance vote for approval.
Excellent. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about this Akash community support proposal? Again, feel free to drop those comments in the proposal before, in the next couple of days before they look to put it on chain for a vote. Again, Neil talked about this at the top, but someone was asking about private Docker containers, and I know that's very much on the roadmap. So we'll keep that issue open and continue to track that via, again, the project board on the engineering side as work continues to get done there. Continuing to look down the list, is there any other discussion that anybody wants to talk about right now? I know we have a little bit of time if we want to talk about any of the ideas before we jump into the next part of the agenda, which is the open discussion part. But does anyone want to talk about any of the GitHub discussions? Go ahead, Robert.
Yes, not a question, well, not a comment in particular, but a question for Greg. I noticed that when community members want to propose their proposal, one of the questions that Greg asks is, how are you going to sustain yourself in the future? So Greg, I'd like to ask you, what are other questions you'd like proposers to be ready to answer in future proposals, discussions, if that makes sense?
So
you're on mute, Greg.
Sorry.
You're good.
For me, it's deliverables. Are they going to be open source or not? And what are the expectations after they deliver? Like, how do you expect to get more funding? Do you expect to make money? Or do you expect to work with the network to figure out a sustainable mechanism, right? A lot of times when we've seen cases where you build something, you're excited, and then you want to make money on it. Being open source makes it very complicated to make money. And then you start taking shortcuts, and that goes against why we needed the tool in the first place, right? So it's really that simple. I don't keep too many bells and whistles. I mean, it's really about what are your plans in the future about how to make money, right? It kind of sucks as a builder when you go build something and then you can't figure out how to sustain it, how to make money on it, especially if you quit your job and do things like that, right? So I want to set the expectations very clear up front before you start, having your own expectations. Keep it simple. I don't really have too many other questions.
Thanks, Greg.
Of course.
Does anyone else have any other things that they want to talk about as pertains to any of the open GitHub discussions? Cool. All right. Now we'll move to the last part of the agenda, which is open discussion. I know we have about 9 minutes left. Again, I know there's a number of events happening in the next couple of weeks, whether it be a public insider office hours, various SIGs and working groups as we wind down the rest of 2023. But is there anything else that anybody wants to discuss with members of the steering committee and then other members of the community here on this call? All right. Well, if not, then again, much appreciate everyone's time today. I know that we'll be talking a significant amount. Perfect. DC Norse has dropped something in the chat. So again, if you all want to take a look at it, feel free. But again, much appreciate everyone's participation today. This is the last steering committee of the year. So again, want to thank everybody for participating this year. We've had 11 of these meetings, and it's just been great to continue to evolve these meetings, get more folks involved, push some of these items from ideas to GitHub discussions to proposals to community pool and then to actual deliverables. So as we move into 2024, obviously there's been a lot of learnings from 2023 as we created this open framework. When 2024, I think there's a lot of momentum. Again, we're continuing to learn, we're continuing to grow, and so 2024 was really going to hit the ground running. So look out for a number of different vehicles that we're looking to get more people involved from the community, from bounties to incentives, to other forms of keeping people connected. We're going to try to make it as clear as possible, a number of different ways where people can get started, whether they want to get started as a community member or whether they want to get started using the product. So again, if you want to get hands-on, if you want to help with any of these efforts, I know a number of you are already in Insiders, but please make your voice known and continue to express yourselves on ways you want to get involved, things that you see that can be improved, and we'll just continue to work together to make the Akash Network what we all know it can be. If no one has any other questions, then again, happy holidays to everybody, happy New Year, but we'll certainly talk in other meetings before the New Year. But again, because it's last steering committee, just want to, for those watching this, much appreciate everyone's effort and hope everyone has a happy and safe New Year. And we'll talk again in January 9th, I believe, or excuse me, January 11th will be the next steering committee 2024. And then we'll just continue to build out the Akash Network.